So are they like less social? Or?
They feel like nobody understands them because, you know, losing a parent is not something that's extremely common.
Oh, shoot.
I'm answering Logan's question right now. You have another one you want to show somebody before you go?
Oh, yeah. Do you think that social disabilities can manifest themselves when kids have to deal with parents with PTSD? Such as, like, when the parents are having problems, do you think the kids can also develop problems by having to work with their parents?
Okay, I'll cover that one next. We'll finish up the other one about parents who are deceased. Okay? Yes, indeed. That's going to be in the bloopers reel. Kids who have lost a parent oftentimes, like I said, feel like no one understands them, like no one could possibly know that's going on. And for some reason, I even have kids that don't want other people to know that about them. They kind of want to keep that private. Thank you, Logan. So yes, I do work with that, and those kids do struggle. His other question was,
I have it on my
you have it? Okay.
Do you think social disabilities can infest themselves when the kids have to deal with a parent with PTSD?
Okay, so I think what he's asking is, if you have a parent who has mental health problems,
Does it affect
kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the answer is yes, okay, it does. PTSD necessarily isn't like a mental health problem that you inherit from your parents. You can't have a parent who has PTSD and then you all of a sudden have it, okay? PTSD, you have to experience and go through something traumatic that leads you to have that problem. But there are other mental health problems there is a genetic link, and you guys know what I mean by genetic. That means like, kind of like the same with like diabetes and heart disease. If you have people in your family that have that, your blood relatives, then you're more likely to have that. And there is, you know, a lot of research that shows that like anxiety and depression and bipolar and things like that, Asperger's, autism, if parents have those problems, then kids are at higher risk to have them. It doesn't mean they're going to, but you also have to look at the other side. They may be at a genetic, you know, risk to have it. They may be more likely to have it because of their relation, their biology, but you have to look at the environmental side too, okay? So if you're a kid and you're growing up in a house where you see your parents' coping skills are to yell, get anxious, you know, freak out, go get drunk, things like that. If you see your own parents coping in that way, then the kids are learning from their parents at all times. So therefore, they may be learning that that's how you deal with your problems. So they're more likely to use those coping skills too. And then again, the stress of it all can cause kids to have some depression and anxiety too.
My question was about coping, like how kids cope with their problems, or like what you would suggest, how they cope with their problems.
How do I suggest kids cope with problems? Well, I always tell kids when they come meet with me is that there's kind of different ways. It just depends on what you need at the time. I always say kind of the number one way is to talk it out with somebody, whether that's a parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, counselor, coach, teacher, friend. You know, try to talk it out. Sometimes, you know, what happens to a water balloon if you don't turn off the water, it's eventually going to burst, right? So feelings are very tricky, where you can just deny that you're feeling sad, deny that you're feeling stressed, and just try to go about your daily life like you have no problems. But feelings are so strong that they're going to eventually demand to be heard, and they're going to come out, okay? They're going to come out in the form of, you know, anger and stress and things like that. So I always tell kids you have to try to not lock them in, okay? You have to try to get them out in some way. Now, I can't solve a lot of kids' problems. You know, I don't have a magic wand that can take all your problems away because that's just part of life. That's just the life that you have right now. But I always say you need to talk it out, and if you don't want to talk, you can write in your journal or your diary. You can do art. art. Some kids like to do art about their feelings, you know, draw or paint. Sometimes you have to just be active, okay? Sometimes, you know, exercise is nature's antidepressant. Sometimes you just feel so much energy that's negative, you have to kind of just sweat it out and be active. Or sometimes you just need to chill it out. You just need to go relax, put your feet up, get in your comfy clothes, lay on your bed, hug your stuffed animals, watch your favorite movie, laugh, take a bubble bath, whatever you want to do. So you kind of have to, you know, pick and choose between talking, writing and journaling and art, exercise and being active, or just doing something relaxing. Those are all things that can calm you down.
How could you help a kid with a problem that can be fixed, whether it's at home or maybe with their parents?
How can I help a kid with a problem that can't be fixed?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of like what I just said, you know, I don't have a magic wand and I wish I could fix it and change it for all of you guys that have gone through problems. There's just times when you just have to show the kid that this part of your life right now, this small, teensy-weensy part of your life, is not your whole life, okay? Sometimes they think that it's never going to get better, okay? What I'm going through right now is the way the rest of my life is going to feel, and that's not the case. You know, what you're going through right now is just one very small part. So if you can just kind of help them to cope and get good support for them, you can't change their problem, but you can help them through it and get them to a place like the girl in your book. You know, she's 16, 15. You know, she's almost at that time where she's going to be independent and out of the home. So if you kind of can just show them that pretty soon you're going to be in control of your own life. You're going to be in charge of what happens to you. Right now, you have to live with your grown-ups and parents and things like that, and they're kind of having control over you. But pretty soon, you're going to be in control, and you can make your life how you want to. You just kind of have to support them along the way.
When a family needs help, what do you do for the family?
When a family needs help, from a school perspective, a lot of times you can't really do a lot of family counseling in the school. So a lot of times I'll just recommend to a family that they might want to go into the community into Bloomington or something and go to an agency that does some family counseling, because I think that that's important, that, you know, families have to kind of know what's going on with kids in order to be supporters of them. The school day doesn't really allow me to do a lot of family counseling. I try to keep in touch with families and talk to moms and dads and give them some ideas of how to help, and some tips and suggestions. But usually what I'll do is just make a list of resources and give that to the parents to go sign their family up.
What different kids have you worked with, such as like kids with anger issues, disorders, etc.?
What kind of kids do I work with in a school? Okay. In a school, let's see. Well, I work with kids that are depressed. I work with kids that have anxiety and anxiousness. I work with kids with anger problems. You know, all of those kind of problems within themselves. But I also try to help them cope with problems that are in their environment, like divorced parents, alcoholic parents, in jail parents, deceased parents. And then in terms of friendship and things like that, I work with a lot of kids with friendship problems, social skills problems, you know, fitting in, academic, getting organized, behavior problems, making good choices at school, things like that.
What type of education did you have to go through?
Education. Well, in order to have my job, you have to have a master's degree, which is graduate school. So I had to go through 4 years of undergrad, and I did that at Eastern Illinois. And I got a bachelor's in sociology, which is kind of the study of people in groups in our society. And then I went to U of I for grad school and got my master's degree there. You're going. Are they? Cool. So I went to U of I and got my master's degree, and I got my master's degree in community mental health. And before I came working in the schools with you guys, when I said you guys were all, what, kindergartners probably? Or pre-K maybe, I don't remember what you guys were in. I worked in substance abuse treatment before I came here. So I worked with kids, teenagers who had drug and alcohol problems and mental health problems before I came here. In order to do that, you have to go to way more schooling. You have to take a big test to be called a licensed clinical social worker. And then in school, you have to take another big test and a bunch of classes to get a certificate called a Type 73. And I did that at through Loyola in Chicago. So my job, you have to take a lot of classes, you have to have lots of schooling, you have to take lots of tests and pass them in order to be certified to do it. Yeah, but if you want to do my job, you definitely have to think that you're going to go beyond your bachelor's degree. You have to go to grad school. And you have to do it before you get your job, too.
Katie, do you want your questions?
Yeah, that's fine. Like, did you want this job to help others and why?
Yeah, I think I answered that one earlier. Yeah, that was just part of my personality. I love helping people. I love getting to know people and trying to make their lives better. So that's, one of the main reasons why I love this job.
And in our book so far, we know that the father has PTSD. Have you ever experienced this?
I personally know I have not experienced this. I have had students who have had that diagnosis. Students that have been sexually, emotionally, physically abused sometimes do suffer from PTSD. So I've known students over the years who have had that diagnosis.
How do they get PTSD besides, like, from the father that goes into war?
Mhm.
How else would you get PTSD?
Like I said, sometimes anytime you go through a traumatic trauma that's causing you extreme anxiety or maybe some flashbacks about it, you can get it. Maybe you're in this terrible car accident and you have it, or maybe you're just extremely, abused as a child. You could have it, or maybe someone that's raped or something like that could get it, or through a war. Just any extreme trauma that you can imagine, or maybe seeing someone murdered. Anything like that can cause you to have that extreme panic and anxiety.
So have you ever experienced teenagers, how Haley has to do everything for her family, or her father? Do you ever have the same problem with teenagers that are basically the parents of the family?
Yeah, that's happened. You guys probably primarily know me as working in the grade school, but like I said before, I came to work in Hayward. Actually, when I first started Hayward, I worked in this school 2 days a week for many years before I got pulled over to work in the grade school full time. So I knew kids, and they're older now and they're in college now, but I've known kids here that have had to take care of, usually it's the older kid, or the older kids take care of the younger kids if the parents are drunk or are high on drugs and things like that. Or maybe, they have some poverty and maybe they have to get a parent has to get a night job or something just to make extra money. And then the kids are responsible for, helping clean and cook and take care of the younger kids, things like that. And when I was a counselor in the substance abuse, agencies that I worked in, oftentimes kids who have problems with drinking and drugs, a lot of the time had parents who also had those problems, one or more of their parents. That happened quite often. It's kind of just this family circle that just generations of people have these same kinds of problems. So it's just the way they were brought up, and they kind of have to fend for themselves sometimes.
Does that cover everybody's questions?
Did we get them all? You guys have any follow-up questions? You guys had good ones. You had really good questions.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome. Steven, did you have another one? No? Okay. Like I said, great question. Thanks for having me.